Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating overarching theme, the hidden, unseen mechanisms that secretly drive both our psychological behaviors and our biological health. We so often look at human actions and physical wellness strictly at the surface level. But as we're about to see, the real story, it is always happening underneath. We're going to uncover what drives our deepest deceptions, and then we'll shift gears to look at an invisible, microscopic world inside our bodies that dramatically alters our physical health. Let's jump right in. Look at this quote from our source material on the psychology of deception. Most people don't lie because they're evil, they lie because they're afraid. Think about it. When we catch someone in a lie, our immediate instinct is usually to assume malice, right? But psychologists have discovered that deception is most often rooted in deeply held fears. We're talking fear of rejection, fear of punishment, or the fear of losing someone's approval. It's essentially a defense mechanism, a way to protect a fragile self-image. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the nature of deception, the 7 ordinary reasons we lie. Researchers have actually pinpointed 7 main reasons why people lie. Now, some of these are probably exactly what you'd expect, like avoiding punishment, preserving our image so we don't look bad, keeping secrets, or just being goal-oriented, like maybe stretching the truth a bit on a resume. And sure, a small percentage of lies happen just for pleasure or out of carelessness. But surprisingly, one of the most common motivations is totally altruistic. These are the pro-social lies we tell to spare someone's feelings, like telling your friend you absolutely love their terrible new haircut. With ordinary lying like this, the motive is super clear and it's highly situational. Moving on to Section 2, when lying is pathological, deception as a default. So what exactly happens when lying completely loses its strategic purpose? This comparison maps out the difference perfectly. With ordinary lying, you have a clear gain, you're conscious of it, and typically it actually causes you a bit of internal distress because deep down you know it's wrong. But with pathological lying, which is also known as compulsive lying or mythomania, the motive is completely unclear. A person might lie when telling the truth would actually be much easier. The behavior is pervasive, it's automatic, and crucially, they experience minimal distress. To them, it just feels natural. It's what psychology calls ego-syntonic. And here is where we get into the hidden biological root of the behavior. A really notable neuroimaging study from 2005 found that pathological lying isn't just some moral failing. It actually has a distinct neurobiological foundation. Pathological liars show literal, structural brain differences. They have increased prefrontal white matter, which essentially gives them the cognitive flexibility to spin these elaborate stories, paired with decreased prefrontal gray matter, which impairs their impulse control and moral reasoning. It's literally hardwired differently. Beyond just brain structure, habitual lying is very often deeply intertwined with underlying conditions and hidden traumas. It frequently shows up alongside antisocial personality disorder, where deceit is used for exploitation, or ADHD, where impulsivity basically drives a person to say whatever reduces immediate conflict. But the really surprising underlying factors are those last 2 points you're seeing here. Often, pathological lying is a sheer trauma survival mechanism. Children who are raised in unpredictable or abusive environments learn to tell people exactly what they want to hear just to stay safe. And as adults, chronic shame and attachment insecurity keep them locked in this cycle of constructing a false self because they're terrified that their true self is profoundly inadequate. Section 3, protecting your own reality, the cost of chronic deception. Now, while the liar is operating from this place of hidden neurobiology or trauma, the impact on the people around them is absolutely devastating. It leads to a deeply profound psychological concept known as the erosion of reality testing. When partners or family members are exposed to constant, elaborate deception, they don't just lose trust in the liar, they actually begin to lose trust in themselves. They experience constant confusion, emotional exhaustion, self-doubt. They're constantly asking themselves, wait, am I just imagining this? If you are in a relationship with a chronic liar, experts emphatically warn that you have to fiercely protect your own reality. You've got to stay grounded in what you can personally observe and verify because their hidden psychological mechanisms are constantly overriding the shared truth. All right, so we've seen how hidden neurological structures and unseen psychological traumas can completely dictate our behaviors. But what about the hidden systems inside our physical bodies? How much of our physical health is being dictated by invisible ecosystems operating completely out of our sight? Let's take a look. That brings us to Section 4, a surprising inflammation fighter, beyond the surface of the tomato. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how it proves the hidden biology at work. Let's look at a recent clinical trial on a very common drink. Researchers at the USDA ran a randomized crossover trial. They took 12 adults with obesity, meaning a BMI between 30 and 45, and had them drink a specialized tomato soy juice every single day for 4 weeks. This juice delivered high levels of lycopene from the tomatoes, plus isoflavones from the soy. They then compared this to a control juice that lacked these specific compounds, explicitly targeting cytokine proteins to measure systemic inflammation. The results here were absolutely striking. After 4 weeks, the participants saw a 2.48-fold increase in their plasma lycopene levels. But more importantly, 3 key pro-inflammatory cytokines, IL-12P70, IL-5, and GM-CSF, were significantly reduced. Another major driver of chronic inflammation, TNF-alpha, also trended downward. Now, the surface-level conclusion here is super easy. Tomatoes reduce inflammation because of lycopene, right? Well, the truth beneath the surface is actually much more complicated. Section 5. The gut microbiome connection. The real heroes. So the surface-level assumption is that lycopene is the sole hero of the tomato. But when researchers analyzed the participants' urine using untargeted metabolomics, they found a whole team of phytochemicals at work. It wasn't just lycopene doing the heavy lifting. They saw huge spikes in naringin and glucuronidase, which is a flavonoid naturally found in tomatoes, along with several breakdown products of phenolic acids. These are plant-based compounds that get metabolized by your gut, and previous studies have shown they directly affect inflammatory gene activity in human immune cells. It's like a giant biological puzzle coming together. So, the crucial point here is the staggering 50% reduction. Both the tomato soy juice and the control juice led to a 50% reduction in a fatty acid metabolite called medium-chain acylcarnitine. Why does that matter? Because this specific metabolite is strongly linked to the exact kind of chronic, low-grade inflammation we see in obesity. This proves that compounds in tomatoes, way beyond just the famous lycopene, are contributing to these massive anti-inflammatory benefits. And then we have the soy component, which turns out to be entirely dependent on an unseen workforce inside you. It works like this. Step 1, you consume soy isoflavones like daidzein and genistein. Step 2, your unique gut bacteria process and break them down. Step 3, brand new, highly active biological compounds are created and excreted into your system. The soy doesn't do the heavy lifting alone. It just provides the raw materials that your gut microbes transform into real inflammation-fighting medicine. But here's where it gets incredibly personal. The study revealed that individual metabolic responses varied wildly. For example, only about 17% of the participants actually produced a compound called equol. Equol is a highly beneficial metabolite, but it is exclusively manufactured by a specific family of gut bacteria called Corynebacteriaceae. If you don't happen to have those specific microbes living hidden in your gut, your body simply won't process the soy the same way. Basically, your unique microbiome composition fundamentally dictates how you benefit from your food. Let's move to Section 6 and see how this all builds up. Hidden truths within us, the whole picture. So, looking at the whole picture, what can we practically take away from this? Well, first, heat-processed tomatoes, like juices and sauces, actually deliver more bioavailable lycopene than raw ones. Second, pairing foods like tomatoes and soy triggers complementary metabolic pathways, so you achieve more together than they would alone. Third, you absolutely must support a diverse gut microbiome to unlock these hidden food benefits. And finally, prioritize whole foods. Taking an isolated lycopene pill completely misses out on the naringin, the phenolic acids, and the complex microbial transformations that whole foods naturally trigger. I love this quote from the research because it perfectly summarizes the biological narrative we've been uncovering. Whole foods work through complex, interconnected mechanisms rather than through a single hero nutrient. Just as we can't blame a single bad intention for a complex web of pathological lying, we cannot credit a single isolated nutrient for our health. The real magic, the real work, is done in the dark, through synergy. And this brilliantly illustrates the core theme of our entire explainer today. Whether we're looking at the mind or the body, the surface is never the whole story. The mind's outward behaviors like chronic deception are driven by unseen fears, hidden childhood traumas, and microscopic changes in prefrontal neurobiology. Meanwhile, the body's outward health and inflammation levels are driven by unseen gut microbes, complex synergistic phytochemicals, and hidden metabolic pathways transforming the very food we eat. Which leaves us with one final profound thought to consider as we wrap up this explainer. The next time you look in the mirror, or when you interact with a loved one, ask yourself, how much of your reality and your biology is operating completely beneath the surface? Thank you so much for exploring these unseen worlds with me today, and keep seeking the deeper truth.